make sure my mic's working here. It's been a while since I've streamed, so bear with me. Alright, I think we're good. My template's a little dated because we are not sculpting Hannah Friedrich's awesome fern concept today. So I'll have to get that updated, but instead, I've got a couple D&D characters I've been working on, so we're going to jump into these and do a little noodling. Probably do some more hair work. Both hair on both these characters is pretty whip, and same with their clothes, also pretty whip. So there's going to be a good amount of that today. Before I do that, though, I am going to maybe sneak a I gotta switch out this stream banner. I could just turn it off for now, I guess. Uh, you know what? For now, let's just do. I won't worry about that for the time being. If it don't bother you, don't bother me. Okay. I'm gonna also raise my desk up a little bit because my keyboard is like on my knees at the moment. All right. So I don't really have a concept that I'm working from, just lots of Pinterest reference. So I'll bring some of that up later, but see where I left off here. So I was kind of trying out a couple different hairstyles for this character, and I like this whole curly hair thing. One thing I'm going to try to do tonight, though, is the thing I'm afraid of is when I go to render this, because she's got so much hair in front of her face, and because it comes so far off of the front of her head here, creates this like really harsh shadow. And I want some of that because I do want to hide her face a little bit. That's kind of her character. That's true to her character, but at the same time, um, I don't want to completely hide her face. So, and I don't want like all of these nasty shadows when I go to light it and render it. So that's something I'm going to be working on today as well. I've got like top-down light in Zbrush in the BPR setup. That's roughly where I like to throw a top-down light in when I'm rendering later on. So that'll be kind of informative and let me sort of know how the shadows are going to play. It's like, again, it's like I don't want to completely take away some of that. And I do like her bangs, like I think they look cool, but um, I just don't want a bunch of nasty shadows covering her face. I had that problem on my fen lip sculpt because um, he has that big, like, oversized hat. Hey, Vital, how's it going? Um, he had that big oversized hat, and it like I went to render it, and it like completely shaded his face in a pretty nasty way. So I ended up having to cheat it, and I did like two renders, one with the hat on and one without it, and then comped them together in Photoshop, which isn't the way I like to do it normally. But yeah, we're we're starting a new campaign, and it's kind of inspired me to do some new personal work because um, I've been like, ever since like the end of the year, I've been like super slammed. We finished up Soundfall in March. We like finished up all the art for it. So um, I was like really slammed up until that point, just like trying to get the game out the door. Um, but and then I moved. So I just moved to Pittsburgh, and I'm getting settled in here. So long story short, this is like among the first free weeks I've had since the year began. So it's a good time to start getting back into that personal art groove. Um, so that's kind of the idea today. And I started these sculpts last like a week or two ago when my buddy sent me his his mock-up character art, and I could probably throw that up here in a moment. I'll have to dig for it. Um, let me let me go find that real quick, cause but I just got really keyed up for the character art in this campaign, so I started working on stuff. So this is my buddy Kyle's character. Her name is Roma Papalomarov. I think I'm saying that right. I'm sorry, Kyle, if I'm not. And then my character Niko, Niko Rosmeros. So, um, and then we've got three other characters that I'll eventually get around to starting. But in the meantime, figured I'd start with the two. That way, I'll have characters to go back and forth to. Let me go ahead and paste all of these character. Some of the guys made their own art, which is really cool. Like this one's Brett's character. I think that should be showing up on screen. Yeah. And I gotta hunt down all the other character art to get them in here, but uh, let's see. This one I'm really excited about. This is my friend Kaylin's character. She's like a tabaxi. That's gonna be a blast to sculpt, so I'm really, really keyed up on that one. Um, let's see here. I'm like digging through all my messages to try to find all this stuff, so bear with me. And digging through our Discord, which is always a tire fire, so it's it's lost. Yeah, I'll have to look for those later because they hid them from me. But I have a pretty good idea of how Kyle wants his character to look, so um, I don't quite need it at the moment. Hey, Shmoish, how's it going? All right. So the other thing I want to do tonight is I've got all this curly hair in the front that's starting to work. Um, the back is not working at all. I just like blocked in a bunch of tubes and they don't look like anything, and they also just don't match the style of like curly kind of wavy hair. So those are gonna get a pass this evening as well. Um, and if any of you have, well, some of you've seen me stream before, but my whole thing with hair is to just like take a bunch of tubes and snake hook them into place and get them roughly looking good, and then later I'll go back and detail all the strands, but I mostly want major forms right now. And I want like a sense of like what kind of hair is this? Is it wavy? Is it straight? Is it curly? Is it short? Is it long? I'm trying to get sort of a sense of what looks good on the character. So um, no details, no little strands, none of that yet. I'll get there, but I like to start with these just to be tapered things, and then I'll eventually go back. Yeah, the tubes are all separate subtools, and then I'll click through them by holding Alt and clicking, and that's just like a shortcut to just um, to get through them. Later, I usually go through and Dynamesh like clumps of them together later, um, just to get rid of some of the noise and some of the like, well, the tubiness, right? Um, I'll go through and Dynamesh them and kind of smooth out um, some of the areas that and just merge some of the strands overall. Um, like a good candidate would be for like these two, pretty close together, kind of share a similar flow. So I'll probably Dynamesh them and then smooth it kind of up here, and then I'll go through and add strands with like my slash tool. So that's normally how I tackle hair. You also just want to like Dynamesh stuff for the sake of baking it, especially if you're game resing something, because it's just easier to bake. I mean, you don't want to like transfer all of these subtools individually if you don't have to. Like, you want to try to Dynamesh some of them together, um, just to stay sane. So, um, so yeah. But hair is definitely like the fiddliest part. It's definitely the time on every one of these that I usually spend the most time on. Cloth is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Like, yeah, there are different materials and cloths of different thicknesses and that kind of thing, but generally they lay the same way. Gravity affects them similarly. Um, and to me, they're just like easier to kind of wrap my head around. Whereas hair, usually, like I'll try to get a sense of style from like some reference that I find, but to represent it in my style in 3D, it's just fiddly. It just takes a while. So that's where most of the time in all of these sculpts are gonna go. Um, and I'm doing this same technique on Niko, by the way. So if I switch back up to this, I did smooth these so they look more detailed, but they're not. They're just smooth. But I think I just wanted to get a quick render out, so I smoothed them, or I just subdivided them. But I'm using the exact same method here. Just taking these tubes, pushing them into place, getting sort of a flow, like, you know, the you want like a lot of good C shapes and S shapes with hair, and it's also kind of like a good rule of thumb to do like clumps of like 2 and 3 strands at a time, and kind of shape them and have them flow a similar way, and then move on to the next. Um, those are good rules of thumb. Obviously, rules are meant to be broken and all that, but it's a good way to get started with it at least. So back here, for example, I'm gonna start just like working in some strands that wrap around the ear here. Kind of like that. If they get too thin, I'll just go back and inflate them a little bit. 'Cause sometimes they get like that like papery look, and we don't want them to um, lose their volume. Like hair has volume. That's like one really common mistake I see with beginners in hair. They just do kind of planes, or just very very thin strips of hair, and um, you really have to think of hair as a volume like anything else is. Um, and it has mass, and gravity affects that mass, and you want to keep point being you want to keep some thickness as you go through here and work these in, because it's very easy to make them too papery, and then you'll get something. You'll run into several problems by the end. Your hair is going to look really flat, um, and like it's gonna be conformed really close to the head because you tried to style it but it didn't have any volume, and so you will end up kind of conforming everything really close to the scalp, and it'll look flat. Um, the other problem is you will have holes everywhere in the hair. Um, you'll just have like, especially if you use planes and are doing like that kind of hair, you'll have holes all over, and from different angles, you'll end up seeing right through to the head to the scalp. Um, so, long story short, I would just even if you're not doing stylized hair like this, even if you're doing something more like a little more realistic, I was gonna say like Apex Legends, but Apex Legends is stylized too, uh, but they do kind of like thinner hair strands with like more detail and that kind of thing. Even then, you know, they're using big volumes. And I was like really intimidated by hair for the longest time. And when I started doing it this way, with just these big tubes and like laying down these like S curves and these big like flowy shapes, it got a lot more fun. It wasn't just like it started looking better, but it just got more fun to pull around and mess around with it. Like, and you start getting more comfortable with like, bigger risks like this big curl that he's got in the front of his head. Like, um, you can start doing some really crazy cool stuff once you get comfortable with this method. Um, See, like over here, these strands are kind of getting really thin, and it's really flattening the hair out. And maybe that's okay in some places, like you want um, like a cool angle or something from the top view. But even here, I think I'm gonna end up inflating these quite a bit, just to keep my bevels not too sharp. And I don't want my hair to look sharp. I want it to look soft and fluffy. So, all right. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm grabbing some stuff on Pinterest real quick. Um, but yeah, and if anybody else has any questions about how I'm approaching the hair or anything else here, feel free to post it in chat. But and like again, it's like this is the fun part too. So like go crazy here. Even if you end up doing something that you hate, just it doesn't take you very long to just snake hook these big shapes into place, right? So even if I do something and end up not liking it, I haven't lost anything really other than maybe 30 seconds, right? So no big deal. Um, Depending on the style of the character, I might even go kind of crazy with these shapes and really bend them and twist them around just to see like just to see what I get. Like happy accidents happen in this part of the process. Like that's how this stuff happened up here. It's like I just pulled this around and then curled it around the horn and everything, and I was like, oh, That's kind of an interesting kind of character feature and gives him that like mop top kind of look. Um, and he's a musician too. That's like his thing. So I want him to look kind of mop toppy. Um, but yeah, I also highly recommend Snake Hook for this process because um, Snake Hook affects the mesh a lot more intensely than other move brushes, and you can really get these really quick, heavy gestures worked in here very quickly. Um, so I love Snake Hook. I use it all the time, especially when I'm in this stage. I'll get into once I have gotten something working in this stage, then I'll go in with my clay tools and my slash three and my damn standard and all that, and get a little bit more into the nitty gritty. But this part of the process, I'm completely snake hooking everything. So I kind of like how that's flowing there. Um, Probably need another strand worked in between these. The only downside with the way I'm doing it, and you'll see it come up as we go here, is I start to get these like big, like weird strands that are tucked into the head, that are ugly and aren't contributing anything. But we can lop those off later with a slice tool, or I've even done it with like after I've dynameshed everything together, I'll just do a boolean using the head as my negative mesh, and I'll just cut all that excess out of there. So no big deal. Um, but this is it's a nice, quick method of getting some kind of hairstyle working. Um, this is a good place also to look. I mean, you should always be looking at reference, right? But um, it's really important to utilize reference for hair. It's just important to see um, how people's hair, uh, how it's affected by gravity, how it how it waves or doesn't wave, how long it is, but also like how it parts and how it flows. Um, there you can glean a lot of great information, even in a stylized sculpt like this, off of real world examples. So um, I'm in Pinterest digging around here to look at some stuff. So I'm gonna just grab a couple images, throw them in my pure ref here right quick. Um, I just Pinterested messy hairstyle, so I'm getting all kinds of stuff. But um, oh, there's some great ones here. Okay, I'm gonna grab some of these and show you guys what I'm talking about. So I want something that's like pretty long, moderately long, And a lot of this reference I'm grabbing, you can start to see the S curves and the C curves and how things are falling, where stuff is parting, and I can start to use this to piece together something a little bit more stylized. Uh, cool. So, some of the stuff I really love about some of these, like, okay, this is really informative here, where the hair is parting right above the eye, and then check out this S curve. That's like a graphic artist dream right there, right? Same with all these over here, how all this is flowing. That's all gonna come in handy with this character. Even though it's like, um, let me throw this in Photoshop actually. Um, Even though this is realistic, obviously this is a photograph. Um, there's some stuff that I can glean from this in my stylized work. So if I take these images and start breaking them down here, let me just do a quick little paint over here. Um, you can really start to pull out these S curves, right? And break these down into or well, I guess you're not breaking anything down. You're building them up into bigger shapes, right? Um, I can start to see how these shapes are working together and laying here, right? This is great because now I'm using real world reference, but I'm going to be able to use this really well in my stylized piece here. So they've got like this is like a good place where I can kind of break this shape up into a couple smaller shapes later on, um, but again, right now I'm just laying in these big tubes, right? Um, so now when I go back to my sculpt here, I can use this exact shape language that I've gotten from this reference, um, and use these tubes as sort of my guides. And again, later on, I'll go in here and I'll with my slash brushes and stuff, and I'll do all these smaller strands and detail it out and do all of that. Um, but for now, this will start to be my guiding star. So I'm just gonna go into the back here and lay down a couple more. And once you've done that enough, like I do have my reference up here, but um, I I'm not using it quite as much. Uh, I will pull it back up later, but right now I want just some kind of tubes in here that I can start playing with and start to see how things are shaping up. Um, so I'm not using as much reference at the moment as I could be, but that's also come from experience. I've done like probably 5 other characters with this exact hairstyle. Um, so some of I'm drawing on some of my experience as well, um, doing this. But again, always have that reference close by because I've probably gotten into some bad habits here too that are going to make it more difficult to really nail the look I'm going for. I'm gonna just turn off my quick save here. There we go. I don't like that. I'm gonna get rid of it. Part of it is I got to figure out where I want this hair to part. I mean, I have a good idea. So I have this part started on the top of the head here, and I've got to just start. Um, the part will probably go to like right about here, and then the hair will start curling around it, and start originating in sort of a radial way from right there. So um, So I can like pull this into place. Every once in a while, I might just start from, instead of duplicating that tube, I'll just create a new one just to start fresh, because some of these tubes can kind of get bent out of shape if I am using the same one for too long. So very simply, I'm just gonna extract one real quick. I'll probably inflate it here a little bit, smooth it like that. Z-remesh on the very lowest setting. Great. Now I've got a tube. I'll probably smooth it here just to get a little bit of a taper. Might even Z-remesh it again just to get it even a little lower. Perfect. Um, and just keep bending stuff in place. But that's the quick and dirty workflow. And that's the great thing about doing it this way. It's very fast. We're getting results very quickly. Like I've only been working on the back of this head here for 10 minutes maybe, and I've already filled out 60% of it. And as with anything, speed also just comes from practicing this a lot. So hair's really intimidating, but with practice, you'll be in good shape. All right. Pull that up a little bit. I am going to smooth these just a little bit just to get a better sense of how the form is looking. When I say smooth, I should be specific. I'm subdividing. I'm not smoothing them. Um, but now where this gets tricky, so with Niko, um, I've done a couple characters with this hairstyle before. I could kind of fly through this. It's like pretty straight hair and um, these like medium-sized locks or something that I did a lot on like the Aldrich sculpt that I did and um, on the Marceline sculpt. But where this gets tricky is on Roma because she's got a lot longer hair than a lot of these other characters. And I also want to do this wavy thing, right? So that's going to be a little trickier just because there's a lot more to consider. And I've got to look in, I like how it's looking up front here, but in the back I haven't quite figured out how that's going to lay. Um, and part of it too is I'm using, I want to do this like bandana that's going over her ear, but that's kind of hard because she's got these big floppy ears, so it doesn't totally look right if I do that. So there's just a bunch of things that I'm still resolving on this character on that front, but we will get there. It's just going to take some trial and error and lots of reference. That's going to be the main thing because I need some good like bandana reference. I need some good reference to see how hair bunches up inside the bandana and then kind of comes out of it. I found a little bit of that, and that's why I blocked in these forms the way I did because I wanted to sort of represent that volume and start to figure out how that silhouette was going to read. Um, and we've got a decent start with that, but there's a lot, obviously a lot of stuff that still needs to be figured out here. So I also, again, like I need to consider where the hair is originating from. Like right now, it looks like it's originating from just this entire band, and there's no like point where it's parting or anything. Um, there's no sort of calic or like um, anything like that. So I just need to start to think about those things as I start pulling all this stuff together. This is one of the trickier styles I've done, I think, and I might also go through and braid some of this, um, or like tie certain segments of it off, like just so I have an opportunity to put some cool accessories in it. Um, I did some of that with my fern sculpt, which I can load up here. You can take a look at that. Um, so this, y'all have probably seen Hannah Friedrich's Fern from Critical Role. She did like a really good series of character concept art. Um, and I've got one of those characters I sculpted here. So I did some of um, that braiding and like tying some of these strands together. And so I want to do some of that with this other character as well. But I also had really good reference that I'd found for this, sort of like it was like bridal hairstyle stuff, but it was really good. But um, I still haven't Dynameshed this, so you can kind of see the process pretty clearly here, and sort of what I'm doing now versus how it'll look by the end of it. Um, and so by the end of it, I'll have something like this that's a little bit more detailed. And this, there's still some cleanup I should go back and do. I should Dynamesh a lot of this stuff together so it doesn't look as piecey. Um, like especially in this area, like I don't like these gaps in between these strands. So Dynameshing would go a long way to help reduce some of that. Um, and in the front here, the front's not super detailed. I don't love the way it's falling here, so there's still some work to be done on this character, but you kind of get a sense of where I'm going this with this Roma thing. So real quick, I'm gonna browse around and look for some hairstyle stuff. So I just went to Pinterest. Gonna grab some wavy hair stuff. That's really great. Um, put this over here. I think with the fern stuff, I used something. It wasn't this photo, but it was something kind of similar to it. Um, this is all really great reference though, because you're getting those S curves in the hair strands, and you're kind of seeing how things are playing nice with each other. Um, so let me grab that. That's really great too, because it's it's not quite the length that I need for mine, but it's not all that far off either. So let's see. This is pretty nice. Oh, That has sound. Well, let me just snip that. That was very loud in my headphones. Um, but that is sort of, I'm looking for something more like this. I wish that that wasn't a video with very loud sound, but see if I can find a good screenshot or place to take a screenshot here. Not great. It's like almost what I need. Here we go. This is really good actually because she's got the bandana and everything too. Um, so let's see. Just trying to find a good moment to grab here. Maybe I'll put maybe I'll put Roma's up like this. That's not a bad idea actually, and that could be that's something that I haven't done before and it could look really nice. So this is great. Let me grab this. Let's see. I want to get like a picture, yeah, a good picture of her bangs too because um, she's just got like really nice wavy hair, so excellent. Okay, this will get us going for now, I think. I'll probably go back and find some more later, but um, that's a good place to start, I think. All right. Yeah, I really like that's making me rethink what I'm doing back here because I really liked that bun. Um, and I think it'll be a nice counterweight to how I'm doing the bangs as well. So I'm gonna pivot here. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna save this and put a pin in this version. And this is already like the third version of this hair that I've done. So, um, but in this stage, like I think it's totally okay to pivot. And I'm gonna start to just pull this hair back and shorten some of these strands back here. I'm just like doing a quick smooth on everything. This is actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about with this system and how like flexible it is because I can very quickly come in here and completely do a 180 on this hairstyle and very quickly have something a little bit more representative. Um, so I just need to shorten all this up, and then I'll start to work in like a bun shape, probably just from a sphere. I'll probably just get something that looks kind of close. I'm just gonna delete that strand. It's like really long. Don't need it. Same with that. I'm just gonna delete a lot of these actually. And I'll use these shorter ones to kind of do what I need. Here we go. That little white piece is actually her bandana there. I just haven't cut or her eye patch. I just haven't shaped it back there. But so what I'll do here is I'm gonna just very quickly. Let's get rid of that too. Duplicate these, put them across, sort of create the volume of the top of the head here, and then I'll just do a quick bun shape out of a sphere. Then we can start getting an idea of how the silhouette's gonna look. It's very ugly right now, but that's okay. We're gonna have all this stuff flow to sort of a center point where the bun gets tied off. So, all right, let me just throw a bun in here real quick. That way we have a point that we can look at to tie it to. So I'm just going to, let me look at this reference again. I actually did a very similar kind of bun like this on a Smite character I just worked on. Shiva has like this very complex top bun on Smite, and I can probably bring that up here in a moment. But it's really similar. It works in a very similar way to how this one does. This is what I'm looking at. So how this one kind of curls and the hair, there's like a lot of hair kind of spiraling around it all into sort of a center kind of donut almost. I guess you could think of it like a donut. Um, so just to sort of block that in. And the way I did the one on Shiva is I blocked this bun in just like this, and then I started extruding strands from it um, that sort of spiraled, um, and I managed to get something pretty convincing. So that's what we'll do here. So I'll get all these strands sort of kind of coming to a point back behind the bun here. I'm also going to make my bandana a lot bigger than it is and sort of cover more of the head. That'll also help sell this. And it'll be less work that way because I'll have less hair to do if the bandana's covering more of it. So this is going to take a little bit of work to get looking convincing, but that's okay. But honestly, I think just overall, like as a hairstyle, this is gonna work a lot better than the initial idea I had with just the long strands back here. Because I like the long strands in front, but it doesn't look great in the back, I don't think. Let me just inflate this. Could also use like there's a ring primitive in here that might actually be good for this. Maybe I'll try that real quick. Let's try that. So I can just grab ring. Let's rotate this. Yeah, this is probably going to work better. Move it into place. Yeah, I still use the transpose tools because I'm crazy and I love them. But yeah, see, this will be better because then we can more convincingly spiral the strands into it without a lot of work. Okay, so looking at how this sits down here, we'll probably have some flyaway hair on top of it, like this stuff. We'll probably have some strands come out like this. So that'll be one of the things we do. But and then this sits kind of down lower, sort of like that. And then I'll inflate this so that you don't have the big hole in the center. Because we don't want an actual donut, we just want something we can start working with. Nice. Okay, so here's what I wanted to show. So I'll pull this, let me pull this closer to where the bun's gonna actually come from. And then what I could start doing here, now that I have the shape here, is I'm gonna just start doing some extrusions. And I'm still gonna use those same tubes. I'm just going to extrude them right off our donut here. And let me subdivide this one more time actually. And here's where the reference comes in handy with this kind of hairstyle because um, hair kind of spirals in a very particular way when you tie it back. So having some reference on hand for this is really helpful. So I'm just going to grab an extrusion, just like that. And same process here. I'm going to inflate it a little bit, smooth it a little bit, and then Z-remesh it at the lowest setting, right? And we've got like a nice little spirally hair strand here. Now, once I do a few of these, you'll start to see how this starts to come together because it looks really goofy right now, right? It looks like this just tubey weird thing. But once I start getting some of these strands extruded off the base here, it'll start to look like hair again. So grab another extraction. And then of course, like later I can like play with how these are overlapping each other. I can maybe make these a little curlier. I could do little flyaways and everything. But again, right now we're just trying to get something to play nice with here. And like as gravity affects this, these curves are going to start getting kind of droopier. So as we get to the bottom here, we can play with some of that. Um, but I'll just end up going all the way around the bun here and extracting some spiraling strands. Right? So now that that's like starting to hang off the side, right? That might get a little droopier there. It might start having some gravity hit it. So go ahead and Z-remesh. I should really put some music on or something. Very dead silent in between my words, so. And then, so I'm looking at this reference again. So there, it looks like there's a pretty big strand here. Let me once again grab my handy dandy snipping tool and we can start to break this down again. So there's a couple shapes I'm seeing here that I want to capture. So we've got a couple strand we've okay, first off we got this big strand here, right? And we can break this down into a couple smaller ones as we sculpt here. But then we've also got they're tucking over and around this chunk here, right? And then there's another chunk here. And that might actually go further around. And then we've got lots of strands spiraling around those shapes. That's kind of hard to see from what I'm doing here, but um, it'll become clearer here in a moment once I extract. So I like how, my point being is I like this overlap. I like how this strand overlaps the others here. And I'm going to try to, I've got a little bit of that here, but I'm going to try to um, keep that idea as I as I do these extractions here. Getting like a little extra of the donut here than I want. Okay, there we go. There we go. So I could try to get some of that overlap here, tucking this in and then pushing this over, right? You can start to see how this, like as a bun, is starting to look like hair again, right? Um, Still got to get the rest of the way through the donut, but or at least getting somewhere that looks like a tied back bun, right? And we'll supplement this with smaller strands, which will really help sell it, and also just like give our character a lot more life. So yeah, this doing buns like this is always like it's kind of satisfying because it's like it doesn't look like anything when you start, but the more you start to get around this radius and extract these tubes, the more you can start to see it really shape up. Again, this is another strand that gravity might have a good amount of influence on, so I'm gonna have it kind of droop a little. It's like, especially if it's not freshly tied back, right? Um, like if you've been wearing your hair in a bun for a few hours or all day or for several days, if you're an adventurer, you are gonna start to get these strands that kind of come loose. You'll even have some fall out. You'll have that kind of thing. So, um, especially if I want to sell like more like a character that isn't well rested or maybe just doesn't put as much thought into their appearance or just through their look together, you might um, have a few more of these flyaways that are kind of coming out of the bun, um, as opposed to somebody who like just tied their hair back, and it's like really tight and everything. Um, and Roma is definitely the kind of character that would probably let this go for a while, so I'll probably have more flyaways, more droopy, bigger bigger forms, and that kind of stuff. So that's starting to feel pretty nice there. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, cool. I'll do one or two more strands on the bun here, and then I'm gonna do some flyaways. But I'm already liking how this style is working way more than what I had when I started here. So this is good progress. And the other, this is also just, this bun is giving me more like ideas as far as direction and flow, how like this hair back here would sort of bunch up and start to sag and that kind of thing too. So um, that's why sometimes it's just great to get on Pinterest and just look at some hairstyles and poke around. It's like I didn't imagine the style for this character at first, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's what it's got to be, right? Um, cool. So we'll do that. I can. Here's what I'll do. I'll actually. I haven't showed anybody this sculpt yet, but he's been out for a few months now, so I can show him. Um, but I'll bring up the Shiva sculpt that I did for Smite, and talk about this same principle and how you can apply this exact technique for like buns and stuff, um, to something more detailed, and like a lot more realistic. So just a moment, I gotta dig him up here, but here we go. He'll take a moment to load because he's probably like a lot of polygons. I don't remember offhand, but probably at least 50 million. So here we go. So he's got this top bun here, and you can see how I applied basically that exact same technique. Now this is all Dynameshed, because I Dynamesh all my, especially all my Smite hair when I go to bake it. But this is working on the exact same principle where I initially just had a big blob that was this top bun, that was basically here. If I smooth this out, you can see kind of where how my tubes initially were. So I had this big blob and then I just extracted these tubes from it and laid them on top and then spent some time like moving them around in a way that made it look like gravity. Like all these have this like kind of flow to them as if gravity's kind of taking over, right? So you get a sense of how that technique can be applied to something more detailed. And then what I'll do on Roma and what I did on this, um, after I've done those tubes, is I'll go through with /3 usually with a little bit of lazy mouse on it, and I'll just like detail that stuff, right? Just do a quick little pass, and you can get fancy with it. You can get trim dynamic out and like get your clay brushes out and all that stuff here. But and I just want to point out too, like you could do this so fast, But the important thing, like those strands that I just did, that's the least important part, right? The important part is this stuff basically, and how you get here. So that's why I'm spending a lot of time kind of showing you how I'm doing that on Roma, because um, that early part is the most important part, and the most, to me, it's the most fun part as well. But so hopefully, if anybody has any questions about all that, give me a shout. But hopefully that gives you sort of an idea of how you could take like these very simple tubes and very quickly get something a lot more complex, later on. And you can also see, like, as I explain here, you can also start to see how I did the rest of this too, right? Like these are all these tubes that you can start to reverse engineer how I started saw this. And again, what we're representing here is just these, like, the fact that these locks have volume and have like presence. Um, and just to me, the easiest way to do that is to make them big tubers and go from there. So hopefully that helps someone. But my issue with hair when I first started sculpting, well, not even when I first started sculpting, years into my sculpting, was how do I start? It's like I look at a hairstyle and it's like, what am I even looking at here? And you really have to train your eye to start breaking down what these volumes actually are, what like how these locks lay. But the first step is I mean, it's just good practice to take images like this and to just start breaking them down into bigger chunks rather than looking at the strands. Like, look at sort of these bigger gestures and these S curves and start there, right? Um, and it's still gonna look really gooby when you go to put that into a sculpt at first. It's gonna take a while to be able to start translating that into 3D, but it's so important to like build that eye, um, especially when it comes to hair. I mean, when it comes to everything, but especially hair. Next thing I'm gonna do here is just throw in. We'll see how this looks. It's gonna be interesting, but I'm just gonna throw in some flyaways here to try to represent. Um, so when you pull a bun back, and actually I can probably let me see if I still have this video up. It'll actually be really instructive if. Oh, did I close it? I might have. Yeah, I'll have to find that again later. This video of her making this bun is actually really instructive because um it shows exactly um how she's doing this, which is great for a 3D artist because then I can kind of get a better sense of how this bun is actually constructed. Um, oh, here we go. I do have it. So pulls it back, uh, straight up. She's got the bandana, and then let's see. Do the bun again. Here we go. Okay, so you could see what she just did with her wrist there. She she kind of twisted that ponytail into place, and then the end of it, she's just tying back. So those flyaways, um, right here and right here, are the ends of the ponytail kind of splaying out um, after she's tied it back. So that's really instructive here because now that gives me a good sense of where these flyaways are going to be, why they're there, why are there flyaways on the side of her head? It's like, oh, okay. I just get a better sense of that now. So Vital says, personally, my biggest gripe with hair creation isn't the sculpting anymore, even though I have room to improve. It's making good topology for hair. Yeah, so I've been spending a lot of time talking about sculpting hair, but if you find a good retopology method, you let me know because that still is the part that, for me, it's like a big time suck in my workflow. Um, like I can usually get hair that looks good, and um, the my best advice, especially for game stuff, it's like really leveraging your Dynamesh, and like eventually you just have to kind of do a pass where you're merging all of the unimportant stuff and making it all one polygon. if that makes sense. Like, because otherwise, if you just sit here and try to like retopologize every ridge in this hair and every single like silhouette break that this does, you're gonna be there for a week or 2 weeks. And I have done that, but it's not fun. I've spent a week and a half just retopologizing hair before. In fact, I probably did that on Shiva. Um, let's see. Yeah, like I spent a lot of time like retopologizing all these split ends and everything. And I like how it turned out, but man, I don't know. It was a lot. And also Smite, like the poly count has some tight restrictions, so like getting this represented in as few polys or as few tries as possible is it's just a difficult thing. It's always going to be a difficult thing. Um, and it's got to be, I mean, it's got to be animation friendly too. So um, it's just it's kind of a nightmare, not gonna lie. But that's why these D&D sculpts are like my moment of zen because I don't have to worry about that. I could just make the hair look cool. It's like with this fern thing. Uh, where did I put her? Yeah, with this stuff, I know that I'm never retopologizing this. It's just not gonna happen. And if I do, I am gonna do it in an automated way because holy crap, I've got better things to do. um, so, but I'm with you. Good topology in hair is hard. I'm gonna flip my light on here real quick. It's getting a little dark. Yeah. And with a lot of short hairstyles, like you can get away with very limited animation or no animation at all. But Shiva's a good example because like Shiva has long hair. Like in every story, he has long hair. There's just nothing you can. There's no way to cheat that. So you just gotta fight through the pain, I guess. And we did, and I modeled it straight here so that I could retopologize it with clean loops and figure out why my headset keeps turning off. But yeah, we got it there, but it is just, whew, man, it's a struggle. Very finicky. It's like I'll retopologize that stuff, and I spend 60-70% of the time just retopologizing hair, and the 30% retopologizing the rest of the character. It's nutty. And like I could probably be better too about like honestly with a lot of hair I could probably take a Z remesh and clean it up and call it a day and it would probably be fine. But I do tend to like hand draw like everything like I still do the vertex method of retopology for everything where I'm individually placing verts because I like the amount of control um, that you get doing that, but oh my goodness, does it take forever. And there are probably some things like hair that I should probably just say like no, I'll just Z remesh it and clean up the Z remesh a little bit and just UV that and call it a day. But I I could be better about my retopology pipeline in general. Like there are better tools for automated stuff now, and I haven't used them, but I really should. I know how to use like topo gun and stuff, but I just like don't like using it. I don't like putting my model in a different package and then having to pull it out and re-export stuff. Basically, a lot of my time is spent retopoing hair and trying to take as many shortcuts on it. There are some parts where if it's stray hair parts that aren't closely held together, I just zero mesh and lower and delete a few edges. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, um, and in a pinch, I have done that. Like, uh, if it's like 2 days before the due date and I'm freaking out because my retop isn't done, um, then yeah, I'll probably cut a corner and just zero mesh something. Um, I just there's that new I've been seeing people post it on social media. There's like that new retopology tool that people are using on like an iPad or whatever, and it looks like it still uses the method I like, which is drawing polygons. I like drawing polygons, but it seems faster and just a little bit more user friendly, and there are shortcuts to automate certain things, and I'm trying to remember what that was called. I've seen it a bunch of times in the last few weeks, but I don't think it's out yet. But it's I've just seen like previews of it or whatever. I was gonna make that a flyaway, but I'm getting rid of that. I don't like it. Yeah, cozy blanket. Yeah, I think you're right. Um, yes, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Let me see if I can find that real quick with a quick social media search. Cozy blanket. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this whole deal. This looks right. This looks like exactly what I need because, and you could do like you can kind of do this with Max. Like they have some of these poly drawing tools, but they don't work very well, and half the time they don't work at all. It's like they're they're in there, but they just like you can draw the lines like this, but half the time they just don't. Yeah, that's cool, Vital. Um, but this looks like exactly what I need. It's like it's not a magic bullet. Stuff's still gonna be a pain in the butt to retopologize, but at least you're making it a little bit more intuitive. That's all I need. All right. So I really want to. I'll have to spend some time finding like some nice shapes for these little flyaways because I want these to be really appealing um, little character features. So I don't know that I'm gonna spend a lot of time right now getting like the perfect S curve shape, but or maybe I will. Maybe I'll spend my entire night doing it. This is where it can get a little fiddly as soon as you start breaking these tubes down into like secondary or tertiary. That's where you can really spend a lot of time nailing down exactly the silhouette you want, but and not just the silhouette, but the form itself. But trying not to get too much into the weeds with that tonight because I'm still just figuring out this hairstyle in general. So, but these look alright. I do need a couple more short flyaways. These are kind of long, so I need just like some short ones that kind of stick out of the back of the head here. You can see on the fern sculpt um, a lot of these, a lot of how I did these like little flyaways. And with these, because I was doing that sort of like bridal hair thing that Fern has, I used a lot of the twist brush as well. Like you can get some really fun shapes by just going in here with, I think it's called the twist, or is it spiral? Might be spiral. I'm probably looking right at it. Here it is, spiral brush. So I think it's S J. Is that SJ? Yeah, SJ is the hotkey for it. But you can get all kinds of fun stuff by going in here and just starting to curl stuff. It's a great way to like kind of stretch the boundaries of what you were sort of initially intending and get some really cool shapes. It's just a fun brush to play with. I've also used that on like beard hair, like if you want like with the Aldrich sculpt, he's got the and Fenlip too, but I think mostly Aldrich because Aldrich's hair is curlier, but he's got that like curly little um, goatee. Honestly, yeah, that stuff looks cool. I'll probably end up doing more of that overall. Create some like really nice curves from this angle too. I can just snake hook those and get even more mileage out of them. Like I love that, you know. That's exactly the kind of stuff I think that's really gonna make this character stand out from the others as like this curly hair and these like nice curly flyaways and stuff. So so thank you for bearing with me because I know for a long time that didn't look like much of anything. Very blobby, but now we're at least getting to a place where this looks like a hairstyle. So still a lot to do, but never never a bad thing to pivot in this stage. We're still early enough in this character we can make big sweeping changes. And that's kind of why I wanted to stream this because I don't know. I feel like a lot of times when I'm streaming I'll be a little bit more open to bigger changes and bigger ideas like that. I don't know why that is, but maybe because I'm talking through it a little bit more. We'll have some stuff hanging and really want to show those volumes kind of coming together into the bun. So I'll do some work um, in the underside here to get some of that working, but it's gonna be a little fiddly, but we'll get something. I also like this is a great example. This is why you want to keep your your forms big because I don't want to sit here filling all these little gaps all day. Um, Especially when honestly, like I'll get a lot more mileage out of the bigger volumes anyway. They'll just look better. So Here we go. That's kind of looking cool. It's like looking kind of messy too, which is exactly what I want. It's messy hair is like the hardest to do too because it's like it's hard to get messy hair to look like artistically driven, if that makes sense. Like I could do like a nice perfect hairstyle and with like really clean lines and silhouette breaks and stuff. But like it's very hard to get messy hair that that looks like intentional as well. Um, I don't know if I'm describing that well, but I want it to look messy, but I want it to also look nice. See, I'm loving this. I'm glad that this is the direction it ended up going because just as a silhouette, this works so much better than what I was doing before. Like with this big counterweight here, um, gives the whole character more gravity. Like it ties these shapes together nicely. So I've got like these nice round shapes that are defining the silhouette. It's also playing nicer with this bandana she's got. Like there's a lot of reasons that I'm really happy with this, but this turned out to be definitely the way to go. And if I ever like say wanted to 3D print this, or if I wanted to game res this, if I wanted to retopologize it, this is going to be a hell of a lot easier to do that with, to clean up and to retopologize or whatever than um, what I was doing before. Because what I was doing before was a lot of just like disparate strands of hair. So hopefully Kyle will like this too. I'll have to show him and see what he thinks. It's I like these D&D portraits too because I get to work with my friends to like it's like it's like a low stakes commission, right? It's like I'm just helping them execute their vision, and you know, um, I'm also RPing with all of these characters, so I'm getting a sense of their personality, and I can kind of work that into the sculpt as well. Um, I mean, that's what I really love about doing D&D sculpts like this. Like RPing with a character and then sculpting them is like so much fun because you just know that character. You know them like you would know a person almost and you're gonna just be a little bit more clever about the facial features and the personality that you imbue and the clothes that they're wearing and all of that stuff. Um, if you if you know that character, right? So these have been my favorite like personal work thing to do because for that reason. I can just imbue so much more personality into them without thinking. It's like I can do that. I can do that in my day job a little bit, and I could do that like in other personal work, but I don't have to think as hard about it when you role play with these characters. You know, um, those that character personality comes through automatically. So yeah, This is gonna be a cool character. I'm super excited. The next time I stream, I'm gonna stream for probably another hour or so. I think the next time I'm gonna start doing more things in the cloth. I literally just took this cloth from Fern and just like this is her belt cloth here, right here. I just took that and melted it into place for this character, so it looks bad. It's not fitting the form at all, and like her boob is showing, which I don't want, and um, it doesn't look very good. Plus, I want Roma's cloth to be a little bit more um, like I don't want it to be as Athenian, I guess. I want it to be kind of weathered. I want like a thicker cloth with maybe even some fraying around the edges here and there. So I think the next time I stream, this will be my focus. Um, but I really wanted to nail down the face and the head before I got into that stuff. So, but we're making solid progress here. So let's see. Sorry, 1 second. I was just checking something. Um, cool. All right, so let's see what else do we have here. Honestly, this is working pretty well for a block out. I'll probably still want to do some looser strands coming into the bun itself. Um, so and those are more secondary. They're a little thinner, but I still want to go ahead and block them out. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna grab this, thin it out. We can start to work in some supplementary strands here. And when I say supplementary, usually what I mean is I basically just want a second strand or a third strand that more or less follows the curve of this bigger one. Um, but maybe it arcs in a little further. Maybe there's some overlapping, um, or maybe they kind of make like an X sort of shape. But I'm basically supplementing that bigger strand with just like a smaller version of itself, just to give it a little bit more detail and start to break those bigger, chunkier shapes into smaller shapes. So something like that. I also could probably be a little bit. I can make some of these bigger strands a little bit more interesting and get a little bit more gravity involved here, right? Like, especially with these buns, like, you really don't want, like, how do I describe this? You want the spiral, right? You don't want, like, if I go back to my core thing here, like, this mask that I drew here, I could probably be a little bit more extreme with this angle. So this is very straight. Like, let me switch to the Lasco. So, like, I don't want very much of this, right? What I do want is this, right? That's gonna make for a way more interesting bun once all that stuff is extracted. Um, but if you do too many strands like this, it won't look right. It will look very much um, like I said, it's all about when she put that bun up. She had that twist in her wrist that she did, right? That curled the locks around it. Um, and so I want to introduce a little bit more of that here and kind of push some of these forms so that they spiral around a bit more. Um, that was something that I really learned doing that Shiva because I some of those. I mean, he's got so many of those buns, and if I were to just have have made just straight locks and stack them on top of each other, it would have looked really bad. But you can see how like these all have a diagonal flow to them um, until they get down here, because here gravity's affecting them a little bit more, and they get droopier. They might not be as, or they sort of have a straighter direction to them because gravity's pulling them down. But like especially around the sides here, um, you can see how like you've got like really extreme diagonals to the point where they get almost horizontal right here, right? So I definitely want as much of that as I can work in. It's just gonna help make the whole thing a little bit more lifelike, a little bit more interesting. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for stopping by. Um, yeah, by the end of all of this, I will hopefully have uh, five, though probably six. I'm probably gonna do a sculpt for the DM too, if he decides what he wants. But I should have six sculpts in sort of the series of characters. Don't know how much I'll do. I don't know if I'll keep them to just a bust. That's what I did with the last round of these. Or maybe um, maybe not. We'll see. Maybe I'll do the whole body. But Adam asked, do you ever use IMM brushes for hair? Um, I have, Adam. I've definitely, there are some good, I might even have them here. There are some good tubey IMMs that are great for hair. I don't think I just got this new version of Zbrush, so I don't have all of the brushes I used to have installed. But again, most of the time, and I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but most of the time I just like extract tubes from a surface, and that's how I get these strands. Uh, so in case you missed it, like I'll do one here where I've got this shape underneath, this bun shape, right? And all I do is just do a quick little mask and just extract. Let me look at that, make sure that's a clean mask. Yeah, I'll get rid of this extra. And I'll make it a little bit thicker. Perfect. So I'll just extract that and throw a quick Z remesh on it at the lowest setting and just push that into place with snake hook. So I have used IMMs. There are some out there that I really like. Um, More often than not, though, I literally just take a tube and push it into place. Um, but the IMMs I have used like are literally tubes. Like the best ones I've found for the way I do hair. Um, that's basically what they are. They're just straight up cylinders that maybe have some taper on them. Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, I'll start with just a bunch of these bigger tubes, and then I'll um, break them down into smaller forms. So like the next step for all of these, once I finish them, I talked about this a little bit earlier with the Shiva example, but let's just take this strand for example. Yeah, I agree. And certain ones especially are really easy to pick out on a model. So there's some where you see them on a model, you're like, oh, I know that IMM, which isn't the worst thing, um, but so what I'll do is I'll subdivide this, and then I'll just take a first I'll take a big slash three on like a pretty high intensity, and I'll just break it into two or three strands, just like that. I'll use a little bit of move topological to get that into place. Maybe a little inflate, a little smooth. Then the next thing would be to subdivide it again and start again with slash three. Start like working in these thinner strands. That's usually how I go through my hair process. Um, and again, it's quick. It's very quick. It's very you get pretty good results pretty quick. I've um, I've seen some methods for doing shorter hair that are a little bit more involved, but you get way better results than what I'm getting here. That involve just more like clay brush and building up the forms and spending a lot of time like getting volumes that way. It's more sculpturally, and you do end up with sort of a better result. But I find for this style that I'm doing here, this works pretty well and it's pretty fast. So, um, but yeah, this is starting to this is getting there very quickly, so it's good. I'll probably have a couple little flyaways at the nape of her neck here too. They'll be kind of tiny and kind of thin, but I might go ahead and work them in here just so you don't have that gap. Let's see. Let's grab this strand. Well, let's just start with a new strand because, like I said, every once in a while I like to throw out, or I don't. Sorry, my headset cut out again. It's like if I'm not listening to something and I'm just talking, it'll forget that it's on. But yeah, so every once in a while I just like to throw out the strands that I'm using and just instead of duplicating it, just mask and extrude a new one. So I'll do that here. Because if I sit here and like snake hook and push and pull those hair strands too, if I keep using the same one over and over, it'll start to kind of get all kinked up and the topology will get stretched and all that. So here we go. Still get that even lower. There we go. Look at the topology. That's still like pretty high, so I'm gonna go even half of that. That's pretty good. Yeah, that whole start low, get higher as you go thing definitely applies with all this. I always start really low with my topology, no matter what I'm doing. This is honestly higher than I even could go, but um, you want enough to get to start to work in some of these curves and stuff. So these bigger, like swoopier gestures. All right. Curve strap. Yeah, I've definitely that's I think one of the ones I've used. Let's see. Trying to remember. Probably looking right at it here. Curve strap snap. Maybe it's in the IMMs. I've used this curve tube before. Um, but yeah, insert cylinder could work probably. There's all kinds of ways you can go. Um, oop, but yeah, as long as you're getting something that is low poly enough to be kind of malleable, you can start flying through these. Um, I'm trying to remember the name of the artist that made a pretty good pack of IMMs that just had the only difference between them, like their IMM and like just a curve, is they just had a nice taper to the ends, and it was like really nicely stylized and stuff. Um, it was still just a big tube. It just had like a nice little end. It came to a nice little point. So if you were doing like kind of anime hair or something, like it worked really well for that. Maybe it was blue. Let me see if I can find them on Twitter real quick. Yeah, I think um, this artist, AD at Eidos. I'm trying to remember. Taisia Abdulina. If I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. But they do really nice hair, just generally, and they actually approach it very similarly to how I do. Um, and I think they released an IMM pack at some point. I'll have to find it. If I find it, I'll post it on Twitter. Um, but they have they had really great little starter kit. Um, but they have a very similar approach. I kind of dynamesh my hair a little bit more than they do in their examples here. But they go about their process very similarly in how they're just like bending the tube into place, getting some nice like gestures and stylistic shapes. Um, this is a really cool example here. These shapes are just really great, really appealing. Like you're getting these nice twists and kinks and curves. Uh, and you can get that stuff really easily with Snake Hook, just smashing your tubes into place. Um, but yeah, I'll have to look around. I think maybe on one of those marketplaces, I think they released a pack. Let's see. All right, what we got? What we got? So usually, I haven't streamed in a while, but normally when I do, I'll do what I'm doing for a while and just work on something. But then towards the end of the stream, and I'm thinking I'll probably stream till about 9 o'clock. But usually towards the end of the stream, I do art feedbacks for people. Um, and if there is anybody in chat that um, wants me to look at something on stream and we can go over it and maybe do a little paint over or something, if they have any screenshots of works in progress, feel free to put them in chat. I'll definitely take a look at them. In the meantime, I'll just keep noodling on this, but I always like to open the floor to other artists if they're working on something cool, and even if they don't want feedback on it and they just want to show it off. Hey, thanks, Sins. I appreciate it. We're getting there. I feel like we made a lot of progress tonight. I'm gonna save this real quick, and I'm gonna open up the version from earlier tonight because the hair came a long way. So let me pull that open real quick. Let's see. That would have been Roma 04. See if this is the one. Yeah, okay. So this is where we started tonight. We've obviously made uh, some big direction changes, but I think they were for the best. Decided to pull it back into a bun here, um, which honestly changed my thinking about how to approach this hair a lot. Um, and I'm glad that that's what we ended up figuring out here. Um, and if anybody's interested in these characters further, um, we do our D&D streams on Tuesday nights, so feel free to stop in and check those out as well. Because by the end of this, sort of one of the hopes with these sculpts is that I can right now I'm just using placeholders in our RP chat whenever we start role playing, but I want to use these as icons and they'll light up whenever that character speaks and so on. If I had like a big budget, I would like rig all these and make them all little VTuber things, and then we'd RP with those. But that is like a whole giant can of worms, and would involve what I was saying earlier that I would like to avoid, which is retopologizing this hair. So, but uh, but even just getting out some nicely rendered icons for the party, that would be a good goal to start with. So the last set of these I ended up 3D printing a couple of them. I don't have them out right now. I just moved into this place, so I'm still unpacking some stuff, and I don't think I unpacked those yet, but I'll have to bring those next time. But I 3D printed my Fen Lip sculpt and a couple others. Has anybody else used VTubers in D&D? I haven't seen it. Probably because it's a ton of work. Because I mean, it's a ton of work to do one VTube character, let alone doing. We have 5 characters and a DM in our campaign, so it would be a ton of work. I would probably have to pay somebody to rig it for me. Um, I could do all the modeling and all of the texturing and all that, but would still have somebody need somebody to rig it and probably somebody to animate it too. I I don't know exactly how VTuber icons work um, if all of that animation is automated or if some of it needs to be hand keyed and then it gets automated later or how exactly that works. But it would be really cool though. Yeah. Yeah. That it would be like by the time I have a feeling that by the time we would finish getting them all rigged and modeled, we'd probably be done with our campaign. It would probably take 6 to 8 months to do all of them. If just that's just like a out of the air guess, but based on um, some of the workflows I've done before, it would take probably a little under a year to do all that. And I don't think, I mean, I know this campaign's not gonna be as long as the last one we did, so we might be finished by the time those all got done. But that would be pretty cool. I would love to see that if one of these streams with a budget um, had some resources to throw into something like that, that would be really, really cool. And maybe one day we'll get a budget. So, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've thought about that too because that happened in our last campaign. I sculpted some of the characters that ended up dying, which was fine. Like we still had cool character art out of it, and um, but it was like it made it that much more heartbreaking because um, we were all really invested in those characters. I mean, just like seeing like personalized art, like commissioning art of in any form of a character, like makes you that much more attached to it, I think. So yeah, um, but yeah, I couldn't imagine doing a VTube model and having it rigged and then like that character dying the next session or something. Oh my goodness, that would be awful. Um, See, I think the way to do it would be to something that I've been trying to build as I do these characters. Like one of my goals with these characters is to have sort of a folder of all of the different D&D races um, that I could just start like so that I could start doing these faster, more or less. Like if I have a gnome base, I have a furbolg base, I have a dragonborn base, like um, and I already have a couple of these. Like I have a human base, I have an elf base. Um, like I've done a couple of these characters before, so I have some of that. But I think the way to do it would be to have a base that is flexible enough um, that you could rig that and basically just do skins for it that were just your different characters, right? If that makes sense. So like all of my gnome characters could basically work on the same rig, and I would just do the minimal work to reskin the costume they have, and their hair and stuff. But I think you'd have to do something like that where you kind of standardized your character races, and like did a universal rig for each one or um, that kind of thing. That would be the way to go because then you could like if a character dies, it's like no big deal. I'll break out the elf rig again and I'll make you your new elf character, or I'll break out um yeah, my halfling rig, you know. Um it would still be work, but it would yeah, like you said, it would save time. So, yeah, all right. We're at a good point here where it's like the next step with this will be doing some of those supplementary strands I was talking about. I've done a couple of them already, but just filling this out with those, and then detailing. Like this is in a pretty good spot. Um, Obviously, like this isn't super detailed, but the overall forms are starting to work pretty well. She's got like a pretty interesting silhouette from most angles, that doesn't look too broken. There's a couple that could still use some filling out. Um, like you can see under the bun is still got some weirdness. So that's something I might still work on. But this is starting to work as a hairstyle. Do some supplemental stuff here. Same thing. Extract the remesh. But yeah, I mean, that is one of my overall arching goals with these characters, is to just have like a sort of template to go back to. And of course, like every character is a little different. Like I'd still want to vary the facial structure and the bone structure a little bit, and um, you could very easily get a little too samey by building out your characters like that. But having a starting point, like honestly, like having this for my furbolgs, um, like even just having this as a base head is gonna be so awesome the next time I do a furbolg because I've already I've already solved a lot of the problems, right? Like I spent a lot of time on this face, getting the bridge of the nose and um, like the eyes, like the shape of the eye, um, and just how everything's relationship to each other, every part of the face's relationship to the other parts. I spent a lot of time working that out. Now that that problem's solved, it'll be really easy the next time I go to make a furbolg, even if it's a burly male furbolg. A lot of those question marks have already been figured out. Um, so it'll just be a lot quicker. Um, could there be some sort of character creation program for VTubers? I haven't looked a ton into it. I'd be surprised if there wasn't already something that sort of automates some of those processes. Like I think a lot of the animation, I could be wrong about this. If somebody in the chat has done any VTubing, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the animation is at least partially automated, and I know automated rigging solutions are getting better and better like every month at this point. I know Blender has some great automated rigging options, um, and I think a lot of that stuff is probably more automated like than it was even like a year ago. Because I feel like a lot more people are doing that now, and especially with Blender and everything kind of on the come up, I think those tools are probably a little bit more universally accessible. So um, I want to say there probably is something that at least automates some parts of those processes. Probably not all of them, but probably at least parts of rigging and animation, I would think. But I haven't done it for myself, um, so I don't know the process exactly. Um, I know I've seen like an interface with like sliders and stuff that whenever I've seen VTubers online kind of showing off their animated model, um, it seems like that's the program they're using to automate some of that. I'm sure there's stuff out there. I could probably Google some stuff, but um, you probably still, and I don't see how you'd possibly get away from um, retopologizing your model and skinning the weights to a rig. I think no matter what you do, you're gonna have there's no great automated process for that that's gonna give you like fantastic results. But some parts of that pipeline I'm sure um, have some sort of pipeline set up. All right, here we go. One of the other things I'm kind of looking at here as I go through, I like I'm trying to emphasize. Let me grab my mask again. Trying to emphasize this diagonal here. It's just like a nice um, feature of this character's hairstyle, and I want to get it nice and stylized and exaggerated. So that's one of the things. If you see me pushing around strands here, that's kind of what I'm looking at the moment. Yeah, rigging and skinning are both very much like a part of the process that still involves a lot of human input. Like um there are better and better automated rigging tools these days, but it still requires you to go in and clean it up. Um, and I mean, like, especially if you're doing anything out of a normal humanoid biped, um, like you're gonna want to probably set bones up yourself, and like if you want your character to do something specific, if you want them to emote in a certain way, a lot of that rigging there's no great way to automate it. You can automate some of it, but there's still a lot of human input necessary for that stuff. Um, Animating of a VTube character, I think, is probably a pretty automated process, just because it's matching your emotions, like, and so there's a very limited range of the stuff it can do. And because it's limited in its scope, there's probably better automated tools for it. But like I said, I've never done that before, so I'm just speculating. I'm just guessing. I don't quite know. I'm basing all of what I'm saying here just on my experience with like skinning characters for Smite. Um, and like we can automate a lot of stuff when we make a new skin. We can automate some stuff. I shouldn't say a lot. We can automate some stuff, but there's still a lot. Even though when I do a character or a skin for a character, I know exactly what animations it needs to do. I already have a rig built for it usually, but still like modifications still need to be made to that rig. Modifications still need to be made for those animations. There's still a lot of like human stuff that has to happen, even with something already set up, right? Nice. All right. I'm going to take a break from the hair for a moment, and I'm going to look into this cloth a little bit more. Um, I like this sort of headband thing. I'm going to duplicate this though. I want to try doing more of a bandana. And I'm going to go back to this video that we watched earlier that I'm kind of basing this off of to try to get a sense of how her bandana is laying on her head, how it's wrapping around the hair. Um, so actually that side view is great. I'm gonna grab a snip of that. Oh man, the snippet. It's weird how this wants to move forward a couple frames whenever I go to use the snipping tool. I don't know why that is. So I just gotta like pause it at the right time and get lucky, basically. Okay, here we go. That's not bad. Yeah, I think these just like keep playing like whenever you stop looking at them or something. What's up, Kai? Kyle's here. This is so I've been working on Kyle's character here, so uh, he's probably especially excited to see what we're doing. Um, Kyle, I've decided that Roma needed a bun, so I've been working on that. Hopefully you like it. But so I'm gonna start to pull this back. Try to get more of this like kerchief sort of look. Yeah, dude, I I spent a good amount of time like doing this basically, and I just couldn't get the shape that I wanted. Like, and I should say I did more than this before I decided that it was bad. Like I filled all this in and did like a longer hairstyle where it was just kind of falling over her shoulders. But it needed something, right? It needed something to like punch up the forms and stuff. So enter the bun. Um, but yeah, I I think we could do something sort of like this that flares out, tapers out a little bit. And that if I get a little bit more real estate up here, then I can do something interesting with like the patterning and stuff on the bandana, which I think could be really nice for this character. So I'm gonna look at this one more time. I think actually hers doesn't really go into that triangle like, well, maybe it kind of does. See, I love this because I love how this is wrapping around underneath the bun, and like you get like some really nice compression in the cloth here um, that we can stylize really nicely. Um, there's just a lot of great like form here that I wanna represent. So let me grab those snips. This video is like awesome too, just because like I'm seeing how she's. I talked about this earlier, but I'm seeing um, how the bandana is being folded over her head, like how it's falling, and she's also got like the right hairstyle, like the hair type. She's got very similar to what I'm trying to represent with Roma, like, and she's like turning her head the entire time, so I'm seeing it from every single angle. So it's like this is just a really really nice reference. I don't normally um, find reference this good, so here, Kyle, just oh my goodness, okay, I just got memed. This is the image Kyle sent of the look for his character. So I feel very attacked and trolled right now. Kyle's in here brigading my chat with this BS. So the only thing about this that I don't like is how much hair it covers. Um, so there are a couple other shots she has in here before she wraps it that I think I'm gonna follow a little closer than that image in particular because that's covering up a lot of that the nice back of the hair stuff that I just did. I don't really want to cover all that up, so um, I'll just have to find a nice middle ground here, I think. Okay, Kyle, is it Pap Papalomarov? Papalomarov? Am I saying that right? I'm not. I'm willing to bet I'm not. Roma Papalomarov? I'm gonna need to go back to our VOD from yesterday and listen to how he enunciates it. plumorph, something like that. Yeah, see, this is cool. Let me just hit the. Yeah, this is coming out a little far on the sides. I want to definitely tuck this. So one of the things I'm noticing from the reference here is how it curves, like it curls under the bun, and it creates like this really nice shape. So probably gonna bring some of this hair in to try to help that along. Also got symmetry off at the moment, just because I want this to kind of have sort of an interesting shape to it. This is getting there. And I'll use my handy dandy /3 once I get like this basic shape right to get some of the folds and stuff. But well, I guess I could show how I normally handle that. Let me just go ahead and well, first I just want to hit my preview render, see how this is looking. Pretty cool. Let's check that out. Yeah, that is getting there. Okay. So normally I will, yeah, as with everything, get that basic shape out, subdivide, and let's grab /3. I tend to detail cloth the same way I detail hair, except instead of strands, I'm doing compression and sort of finding those areas where the cloth would be pinching or sort of, well, compressing, if you want to use the Andrew Loomis terminology. Um, which would be right around the ears, because all this cloth is coming to this point, right, and it's being pulled under the bun and under the ear and or behind the ear and everything. So it's all compressing into that point. So that's where most of my folds are going to be. And then it's actually pretty tight around the top of the head. So I'll keep this pretty smooth. I might end up doing a couple little striations, but I want to keep it pretty flat up there. All right. And then I might take like a pinch tool or something to it at the end. But if I want to get fancy, I want some overlap, I could do a little masking, which is never a bad idea for cloth like this. So I will take this, kind of pull it over top, hit it with a little inflate, inflate smooth. My favorite, that's like it's like the Street Fighter combo of cloth masking. Inflate smooth, inflate smooth. You get a little bit of an overlap there, which is kind of nice. Continue to work that. I should look at some reference while I'm doing this too. Get some more bandana reference. See how exactly that bunches up right there. to overwork it here. Not totally satisfied with that just because it needs a little bit more volume in here, I think. Like where the hair is kind of being like tucking, but we're getting there. We are getting there. Something like that. Not quite there yet, but something's kind of funny to me about the shape of her head on this side. Like it's kind of got that part. It's partially the hair doing it, that like lopsided thing. I just think it probably needs more volume on this side. Yeah, I think that's working a little better. Here we go. So now we can pull this out and tuck it. I think that's starting to feel better. I'll come back to this with more reference because I need to kind of just get a series of bandana images from a bunch of different angles to really get this right, I think. But this is starting to at least feel better. So I'm hoping to get Roma done first, and then I'll probably finish Niko next, though maybe not. Um, Niko's like getting there. He's in a pretty good spot right now. Um, I want to keep riffing on his face a little bit more. I like it a lot, but um, there's some things that need smoothed out. It's a little bit too um, like a lot of the lines, the contours and stuff are a little too harsh and a little too exaggerated, and I kind of need to go back in here and smooth some things out, get things looking a little more youthful, I think. And then I also need to detail these horns, and I need to obviously go back and actually do this leather jacket rather than putting this fake block-in collar in here. Um, so he's getting there. He's probably a little less further along than Roma is at the moment, because Roma at least has. Oop, that's old Roma. Roma, here we go. Roma at least has her hair in a better spot. But then I think after that I'll be doing. Let me bring my pure ref back here. We can look at some of the other characters. So I really want to get to Makit soon because sculpting a tabaxi just sounds like a ton of fun. So that's very high on my list. That's gonna be something I try to get to in the next couple weeks. We've got Brett's character here, which is he's like a human like tarot reader, which is gonna be really fun because I think um, I'll be able to do something cool with the cards in the final render. And then, sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice. Um, and then let's see, Dan's character is like I guess I don't quite know the race of his character, but he's got like a sort of humanoid character with a nymph that follows him around and flies around his head. So that'll be sort of two characters in one. So that'll be a really cool one too. Um, but yeah, it's a really cool cast of characters. So I'm excited to keep going with these, and I'll be streaming. I'm gonna try to like mostly stream and record every time I do one of these, or every time I work on one of these for any kind of extended period of time. So hopefully y'all will be able to see how these shape up over the next few weeks and how they all come together. The last set I did of these was a lot of fun to do. I learned a ton from it. Here, I'll bring those up. A lot of them you guys have probably seen before, but um, these Mad Lads characters, this was the last set I had done, so um, I'm hoping that I can get these new ones to this level and get them rendered out nicely like these are and all of that. But the difference with that is this time I'm streaming it all. So when I did all these were all just one winter on my winter break. Like I knocked out um, all these, but I never quite got around to like showing what my process was or any of that. So my goal with streaming and recording all these, and I'll be uploading these to YouTube as well, is so that we have a nice record of how all of these will come together. I'll do not only sculpt breakdowns as I did today, but also talking about the process of rendering and lighting, getting things into. I usually use Marmoset for rendering, but a lot of these the sort of methods that I'll get into and talk about are going to be pretty universal. You'll be able to use them for your renders in Blender or V-Ray, or I'm an old man, so I use V-Ray sometimes. But however you want to render them, I'm hoping that as I go and render these and light them and everything, that a lot of the concepts will be pretty. You'll be able to use them no matter what program you're in. So I'm gonna keep noodling here for another 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions, or if anybody wants to do any last minute art feedback, I know I had mentioned that a little earlier, but I love to wrap up these streams. If somebody in chat is working on something and want me to bring it up here in stream and do a quick little paint over, or just talk about like if they're looking for critiques on it, or even if they just want to show something off. I don't need to critique it. If you just want to show other chatters what you're working on, um, I'm totally fine with that too. So feel free to post something in chat if you do have it. Otherwise, I'll just keep rambling here for the next 5 minutes. um, but yeah, I also would really like to get around to rendering Fern here. The sculpt is almost finished. There's still a couple things like I want to sculpt her staff still, which is pretty complex. Um, and no, I think the staff is the big thing, and maybe some. Yeah, I want to do a couple more flowers and stuff to put in her hair and like do some of that detail. But this is one of the ones on my agenda too. Um, so hopefully I'll get around to that soon. Um, Especially once I start rendering, I think these other characters, it'll give me the kind of motivation to get Fern nicely rendered out as well. But yeah, yeah. Oh, you mean the Fern sculpt? Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I love Fern. I think Ashley Johnson's portrayal of Fern is freaking hilarious. Like she's got me in stitches every single time I watch. So between her and Travis's new character, I've been like rolling every episode. So um, I might I've been thinking about going back and maybe revisiting her face a little bit here because she leans a little bit human here, and I might want to bring out some of those satyr features a little bit more, like widen the bridge of the nose a bit more, bring the cheekbones a little higher or something. Do a little bit more of that like elven satyr thing. Um, so that's something that I might revisit here in the meantime. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, this was a blast, and I had a lot of fun doing this cloth, especially. Like I modeled most of this cloth in Max. I didn't sculpt it or anything, but it was a lot of fun to do. Um, but yeah, well, cool. Well, I suppose I'll leave it there. like I said, we're uh, doing this Mad Lad stream every Tuesday. If you guys want to check out some of the RP we're doing along with these characters, I'm gonna try to stream either the Wednesday or the Thursday um, each week. So we'll do our session on Tuesdays, and then probably Wednesdays or Thursdays I'll stream. I might I'm also going to have quite a bit of free time tomorrow, I'm thinking, so I'll probably jump back on tomorrow as well. And we can keep pushing this. Maybe I'll switch over to Niko for tomorrow and do a little bit more work on him. I'd love to go in and finish off the hair here, as well as like get something a little bit more substantial for the jacket, and start to block that stuff out. Um, yeah, Adam, if you'd like a critique, please, yeah, go ahead. Usually I do it if you just want to post something in chat. That works super well for me. So um, if you post a link to it in chat, I'll bring it over to the stream and we can look at it. Ooh, okay, okay. So this is really really cool. Um, so this looks like you're in the texturing phase. Like the is this low poly and everything else, or is this just a sculpt, like a sculpt in a poly paint? This is really cool though. Texturing and substance. All right, yeah, this is sick. Let me take a look. Let me grab these images of them and throw them in Photoshop. It'll just make it easier if I want to do any paint overs or anything. Um, this is really good work though. Like you should be super proud of this character. This looks great. Is this from cool, just decimated and auto UV'd. Well, I mean, as a sculpt, like this works like super well. If you, I don't know what your portfolio's like. If you're like looking to get a game job, I don't know if you have a game job or what. Um, but this is this is a character that's definitely worth low polying um if you're looking to like fill that part of the portfolio out, just because like what you've done here is really great. Um, so let me do a quick comp here, just so we can look at all these images at the same time, and I can sort of take in all the angles. Sick. Okay. Um, so, and let me bring the concept in here as well. Um, I one of the things I always like doing when I'm doing a critique is to just bring the concept in and just to see um, what you've done better on the 3D versus the 2D, what the 2D does better, that kind of thing. Just to get sort of a sense of where where you landed on this. And I think like here, let me bring chat back up because I lost it here while I was grabbing all that. I think overall, like you've really uh, done a nice job representing this in 3D. I'll point out just a couple things quickly. Let me grab my brushes. So one of the first things I noticed here, especially when grabbing the concept and seeing like what's really effective about what this concept is doing, is your colors. I think right now there's this sort of gray, sort of desaturated look to a lot of your colors, and separating and just making things a little contrastier would go a long way. So like um, this red's in a pretty good place. I think you might be able to saturate it a little bit more. I'm just like gonna color pick here and kind of look. So the red's in a pretty good spot, but like the beard and the facial hair and well, the hair in general, what what I really like about what they're doing here in the concept is how this beard, this dark brown contrasts and really pops off this red, right? And you're losing some of that in your texturing here. I think you could go darker with this overall, or if not darker in the diffuse, getting less specular or a tighter gloss so that it's more contrasty, I think would go a long way. You could play around with like hair anisotropic and stuff, but I don't know that you really even need to. It's more about tightening your gloss, lowering your spec or lowering your diffuse. One of those things, I think, or a combination of them will get you there. Um, but yeah, getting that contrast, and I would apply that to the apron as well. Like getting these things to like really pop off of each other is something that the concept does really well. So I would just keep that in mind as you continue to texture this. Um, yeah. Let's see. I can give you some small notes on the model as well. Just and these are all things you probably don't even need to go back into the sculpt to do. They're just like little things you can do in the low poly, just little tweaks you can make by moving the verts around that I think will help like really sell this character. Um, the one of the biggest things I noticed is really getting this cool angle in the mustache that the concept has. I'm trying to like they've got like this awesome like kind of sharpness to the angle of the mustache here. Here, let me change my color so we can see it. Um, but they're doing this awesome, like really stylized angular thing with this. I think you could bring a little bit more of that into the 3D here, because right now this is really round. It's really rounded out. And again, that's something you could do simply in the low poly just by moving some verts around. You've done it really well here in the beard. Like this looks awesome. And same with the hair. You've done a really nice job with that sort of graphic look. You No, you do have it. I was gonna say you could probably emphasize the flyaways here, um, because you've spent the time breaking the silhouette up nicely, just like the concept does, which is awesome. Maybe in the paint job as you go through and continue to paint the hair here, you can sort of do some gradient work in these strands to just help emphasize their forms individually. Because right now they're like one flat color, right? There's some subtle things you can do to break up the strands in the color, just like make one slightly lighter than the other, that sort of thing. It's very subtle, but and kind of nitpicky, but I think that might be a thing here that'll help. But man, there's like a lot. Like I'm taking in a lot of the stuff you have done here that I really like. Um, the big examples being where you chose to spend the extra topology basically to break the silhouette. Um, like this stuff is great. Like if I see that in a portfolio, I'm all over that. Like those, it shows me that you really took the concept and like boiled down a lot of the important stuff and made sure you included them when you translated it to 3D. Like you really internalized some of that stuff. Um, Again, there's like little places like on the sleeve here where you can maybe push the angle a little bit more, and just get a little punchier with some of that silhouette breaking. Um, but honestly, I mean, there's a lot to like here. There's a lot more to like than to dislike here. This is really nice. Um, my biggest things here, my biggest takeaways would be your contrast. just overall, like your contrast and your saturation. I might even be able to, let's see if I can, let me duplicate this. Let me see if I just did a quick color adjustment here in Photoshop. Let's see what we could get out of it. If I just like punch the contrast up here, right, in the levels, boom. Like already, like that's feeling a little bit more. Uh, what's the game? Team Fortress 2. You know, like you're getting those like color pops, where you've got your dark darts, your lights, and um, they're all pulling away from each other, which is great. Yeah, honestly, I just keep going. I mean, I I think like everything's here, so it'll just be a matter of pushing your texturing, continuing to work on your gradients, um, your contrast. Um, but this is going to be an excellent portfolio piece. I think this is going to be really really nice. Yeah, there's like do I need to light it any different? I think there are some places you could punch up the lighting. So like especially for a stylized character like this, um, here I'll bring up an example of something I did recently. Not that my stuff is the end all be all or anything, but one of the things I really tried to look at a lot lately, for especially a character like this, is Fortnite lighting. Um, and when they do like a character render, so this is a character I just did and rendered, and some big takeaways here uh, are one nice way to really heavily like sell the stylized look in your lighting is this really sharp and bright blown out rim light. You want to keep it really tight on the model here, but put a light behind them and punch up the brightness. Like, sorry, I'm gonna get a new headset. Punch up the brightness a ton right here. That's like a very easy win. It's very easy to do, and it'll give you just like a nice like punchy style to your lighting. Um, your key light looks good. Like this whole thing looks good. A lot of times for the different angles, because right now I'm seeing like you're rotating the model instead of, or you're rotating the entire lighting scene instead of just rotating the model. So your lighting looks better from this angle than it does from this angle. Uh, oop, let me switch that layer from this angle. Like you're not getting that nice key light anymore that you're getting right here. So one thing I would say is definitely and when you're doing your final presentations and your final renders and stuff, keep that lighting consistent, and um, rotate the. Sorry, I'm trying to think. Yeah, rotate just the model. Don't rotate the entire lighting scene with the model, because otherwise you'll get this. One way you can do that, I know I use Marmoset. One way you can do that is to parent your lighting to your camera. And so whenever you rotate your camera or orbit your camera around, the lighting will go with it. Um, that would be one thing you could do. But no matter how you do it, I would say um, like bring back like this nice key light that you have here. Like this lighting that you've done from this angle is really really nice. So you want to make sure to keep that here. You want like a nice key light that like fades. You want the same thing each angle. You can cheat a little bit. You can like um, you could do slightly different lighting for each angle. Like I do that all the time. Like if if a certain light is hitting this angle and maybe you do this really sharp. Let me switch to white here. Maybe you do this really sharp key light here, and get that really nice stylized rim here, but it doesn't look very good from this angle. Or you want to keep it, but you want it to be more down here. You want it to like really highlight the fish or something. You could move that light down for just for your renders. Nobody's gonna call you out on it. I change my lighting between angles all the time. Um, so you might try experiment with some of that, but the biggest thing is the first thing I would do before I do any of that is translate this lighting to the rest of your angles, and get some really nice renders from each view. Um, but even the lighting you have here is really nice. You've got a really strong key. You could probably go darker back here, like reduce your fill light or your ambient light back here if you wanted more contrast. But honestly, I like where you have it. I think where you have it's fine. So um, that would be my only thing. I'll also like sometimes fake gradients with light. Like basically fake my texture painting with light. Like if I want a nice light to dark gradient on this fish, like sometimes I'll just like throw a teeny little light right here and like shade him and like get a nice gradient going. Um, so you can cheat in that way too. Uh, those D&D things I did, or I showed you guys earlier, the old renders I did. There are no textures on these. This is just sculpt and poly paint, like very simple poly paint. So all of these gradients in here are cheated with lights. Like I've got a light just for the beard that's doing like a nice gradient on just that part of the beard. I've same thing with like his eyes. Like his eyes look like they're very nicely painted. They're not. They just have a radial light that's very tiny, that's just on the eye, that's faking a radial fade. So you can get away with a lot with lighting. And there's a lot of fun little tricks you can do. Um, but for the most part, just start by keeping it simple. Key light, rim light, fill light, which is what you have on this. Like you have your key light, you have your fill light, which is doing some of this ambient lighting down here, and your rim light. And you do have a rim light here. My only thing is, you could punch it up if you really wanted to stylize it further. But um, yeah, that's about all I got on this. I think, like I said, like you've done a really nice job here. So um, like you're in the home stretch. At this point, everything's there. It's just a matter of like pushing a vert here and there and punching up your color. So really nice job. I guess that's about all I got this evening. Um, he said, should you just rotate the model? Yeah, you could do that. You could just rotate the model. I'll parent it. I'll parent the lights to the camera sometimes just because like sometimes rotating the model is harder than rotating the camera, especially for specific angles. But yeah, rotating the model is perfectly fine if you want to do that. Totally. Yeah, thanks for showing that off, Adam. That's really really cool. Alrighty, y'all. Well, that'll be it for me tonight. I'm gonna try to jump back on tomorrow and do some more work on Niko here. But again, we made pretty good progress tonight. This is where we started on Roma, and this is where we left off. So big difference. Yeah, appreciate y'all watching. Would love it if y'all gave us a follow. We're working our way little by little towards affiliate, and we're keeping a good pace. So, um, nonetheless, really appreciate y'all stopping by, and we'll be back soon. Later.